On today's episode of Phinside The NFL, Miami Dolphins veterans report to training camp. We finally made it, but it comes with some interesting twists and turns. Raheem Mostert showed a little solidarity, and it seems like the players are behind Tua and understanding if he decides to hold in. And yes, Tua officially reported today. We'll talk about all that. Plus, Jeff Darlington for the first time indicates the Miami Dolphins may let Tua play this year out. We will talk about that. Also, first day at camp for OBJ, and he is placed on the physically unable to perform list. We will talk about all of that and so much more. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. As always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field on the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? We finally made it, baby. We are back. Training camp is in full effect. Do me the favor, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new as you come through. I thank each and every one of you for taking the time out on this Tuesday to come through. Just a reminder, I'll be back. Unless some news breaks tomorrow, I'll be back with Richmond and Ball Game around 7:45 p.m. On Thursday, I'll be back with Neil for Fin Too Deep. It'll be coverage all weekend as we got camp. I believe camp is open to the public on Saturday, so we'll have some Saturday coverage. Sunday we'll be live for Dolphins After Dark. Man, it is back in full effect, and we are steam rolling through. Shout out to you, Mike Rose. Enjoy your lunch, my friend. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about here. First of all, let's talk about one thing. I know a couple weeks ago I had said, hey, if they don't get something worked out and they let Tua hit the market, don't think a team like the LA Rams won't swoop in and pay the younger guy. But Stafford has renegotiated his deal, got a little bit more money. So there you go. All right, Stafford gets some new money. Another quarterback gets new money. There's been no, I don't want to say progress, but there's been no new news on the Jordan Love front in terms of quarterbacks. Obviously, I think Love and Tua are the ones that get done. I don't think Dak does. So I wouldn't be holding my breath if I were you expecting Dak news to come through. That would pretty much shock everyone because I believe Jerry Jones has said that they're waiting to pay him. And, you know, I don't know. It's going to get very interesting there because CeeDee Lamb wants all that money and what kind of who they're going to prioritize over who. It's going to be very interesting to watch what goes on in Dallas. And I'll tell you one thing. If we miss out on Tua just to go and pay $60+ million for Dak to save face, I am not going to be a happy camper. I'm going to tell you that much, okay? Because for all of you jabronis that only stick to the who say the numbers are hollow and it's all about playoff wins, like there isn't 52 other players on the roster and a coaching staff to be held accountable to, Dak ain't no better. You'll be saying the same thing about Dak. Oh, he puts up these gaudy numbers, but we can't win with them. And it's in the NFC where it's a much easier path to the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. How much easier? Well, when I read off my top 16 quarterbacks in order, I only had 3 NFC quarterbacks in the top 10. Tells you how hard it is to win in the AFC right now. All right, and here's the fact of the matter. NFC is wide open. Only one active quarterback in the AFC has ever beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, and that is Joe Burrow. The only other quarterback who's beat him in the playoffs, in the AFC and in the NFC, Tom Brady. So, with two different teams. Just saying. It's not as easy of a task as people make it seem to be. Just like they make it seem finding a Patrick Mahomes, a literal one-on-one is a super easy task. If it's such an easy task, why has Lamar Jackson gone to a Super Bowl yet? Why can't Josh Allen beat this guy? Why did Stephon Diggs get frustrated and pack his bags and leave? Just saying. So, anyways, speaking of Joe Burrow, all right? Speaking of Joe Burrow, will a real Slim Shady please stand up? I tweeted out today, Eminem just dropped the death of Slim Shady just to give way to the birth of Joe Burrow's new look. Or are you one of those people that believes he's more of a Cody guy, that he looks like Cody Rhodes right now? See, the thing is, that's kind of, Cody's got a little bit more hair on the top there. Where do you stand? Is it more Cody or is it more Eminem? You let me know where you're at. See, it's more of an Eminem haircut for sure. But all I know is, with a real Slim Shady, please stand up with Joe Burrow. Absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious stuff, man. We got people chiming in, right? Cody Rhodes, right? Shady, Cody for real. Cody. The Cincinnati Nightmare. Oh my God. AJ, you killing me, bro. The Cincinnati Nightmare. Hey, everyone knows I'm a huge Joe Burrow guy. I loved him coming out. I hope he bounces back. I read a very interesting thread on his injury and how you're basically, talking about his wrist injury, right? And how we're basically in uncharted territory with what's being asked of Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? So, because the injury he's had is unique. It's not an easy injury to come back. I'm bringing up the thread right now so I can read to you, because I even sent it over to EM Dolphin fan, and I was like, yo, bro, read this, because it is not anything easy at all. There has never been another NFL quarterback to suffer this injury. The wrist injury he has. Like, it is a one-of-one wrist injury. It's legit, right? He suffered a season-ending, right? I'm not even gonna, scapholinate ligament tear in his throwing wrist on November 16th. This ligament is very important for the stability of the wrist, and since most ligaments have poor blood supply, it needed to be repaired. You can follow Dr. Jesse Morse. He's a fantasy football doctor. He's a real doctor who also dabbles in fantasy football. And he said he asked an orthopedic hand surgeon colleague his thoughts on the injury as it pertains to Burrow, and here was his response. Quote, "It's a bad injury to have. It invariably always leads to some instability over time and arthritis at an earlier age. 80% of normal strength and range of motion is common. Hard to do, quote, dart thrower's motion, which is important for snapping the wrist in the follow through when throwing. But these guys are superhuman, so I'm sure he'll be fine." And then he asked him, will this change his career forever? And the orthopedic surgeon, yes, for sure. For context, he's the only pro QB I've ever heard of this, so it's hard to gauge. Man, that is heavy stuff. I'm wishing him a speedy recovery. I really am. I really am. But, man, this is... because, hey, at the end of the day, we're all football fans. We want the best football players possible on the field. You know what I mean? In any game we turn on a Sunday, right? That's just the fact of the matter. So, kind of crazy stuff in terms of with the whole Joe Burrow thing. All right? So, man, kind of crazy. So, anyways, let's We got a lot to go over, so let's get into it. As always, we'll be chronological because we just got news right now that another Dolphin player has gone on the PUP list. We'll talk about all of it. We'll go in, I'll keep you guys all filled in because a lot of news is breaking right now. So, all right, don't you worry. I got all of you. I got you, baby. I got you. All right, so let's get into this. We got a lot to cover, a lot to go over, so I want to hop right into it. No messing around. Let's start off with the news this morning that broke. And Bengals says Bengals are talking not paying Chase for a year. They're just playing games. That's hilarious. If you weren't going to pay T. Higgins, why would you go through the same song and dance with Jamar Chase? What are we saying here? If that's true, you know what I mean? I know Jamar Chase is a priority. So, I don't know. They probably want to see what they got with Burrow, too. I wouldn't blame them. Anyways, morning started off pretty strong. Emmanuel Ogbah, who worked out yesterday with Yannick Ngakoue, signed a one-year deal worth up to $5 million with the Dolphins. The deal was negotiated by Drew Rosenhaus and Ryan Matha. Listen, you guys already know how I pretty much feel about this deal. We needed someone in that edge room who's healthy and can set the edge right now. All right? What does the college tape tell us? Because that's all we have. We're not coaches. We're not watching these players every day through OTAs. Bradley Chubb and Mo Kamara on film are not consistent edge setters and guys you want to be every down, 3-down defenders at this current stage. Now, could stuff have happened at OTAs and through training camp that changes that narrative? Sure. But I think that's more of a year 2 thing where you fully trust them. Now, they might flash and give you reason to trust them in year 1. You want to see that. But this tells you, bringing back Ogbah, you could see a front where you've got Ogbah, Seiler. You could literally see this. Ogbah, Seiler, and Calais Campbell interior. And then imagine Mo and Chop and Jalen, or Chubb when he comes back and Jalen flanking those 3. That's pretty strong. That's a pretty strong front. I'll tell you this much. By bringing back Ogbah, bringing in Calais Campbell, we can set the edge. We got vets who can set the edge. You know what I mean? So, listen. For up to $5 million, Ogbah ain't breaking the bank. All right, so Robert asks, hey, reason is the Big O episode still on? Yeah, it'll be on. I just haven't had time to schedule, but don't worry, I got you. It'll come. It'll come, don't worry. It'll come this offseason before the season starts. All right, don't worry, I got you, bro. I'm actually trying to coordinate. Me and Jordan Schultz have been trying to coordinate for like 3 or 4 weeks. So that's who I'm trying to still coordinate with to come on here. Hopefully I can get him on this week or next. But he's been busy because he's been on Speak and he's been hosting with Colin Coward. So he's been on FS1 a lot lately. So that's why Schultz has had a crazy schedule. So anyways. So Ogbah, I'm a fan of it. Obviously, we saw in the first 2 years of his deals, back-to-back 9-sack seasons. Then he got derailed by injury in 2022. And what was really impressive about last year was unlimited opportunities due to Vic Fangio and the way he was using Ogbah. What was the deal? What did we see? Right? We saw him still put up 5 sacks, and we saw players basically go to bat for him saying, hey, this guy needs to be playing more. So, Listen, I don't know how, the pass rush is not suspect as fuck at all. It's the setting the edge beyond the two guys. Ogbah has had back-to-back 9-sack seasons and a 5-sack season last year when he was barely used. Calais Campbell, go watch the Atlanta Falcons when he was on the field and when he came off the field. They literally had 0 pass rush when he was off the field, and he was downright dominant at times last year. Chop Robinson and Mo Kamara are literal natural pressure generators. I mean, if you think and then when Jalen Phillips and Chubb, our pass rush is fine. It's the ability to set the edge that's the problem. That's the issue. Because once you get past Calais Campbell, who can flex out and in, and once you get past Ogbah, who can flex out and in, that's when you start having questions about guys who can play outside setting the edge, because Phillips and Chubb are not around. Josh Hart, member for 5 months, says, what up, Reason? Chat, fins up. We're ready for another season. Hopefully this is a Super Bowl year. Brother, let's just get to the AFC Championship. One step at a time, baby. One step at a time. There was no practice today, but we'll get into all that, all right? Practice starts tomorrow. I hope they would. I don't think they will, but I hope they would. I hope they would. But anyways, I'm a fan of the situation. I'm a fan of bringing Ogbah back. Cheap, proven, knows the personnel on field and on the sideline. I'm good with that. I am. So, all right, let's get into everything. We got some Tua stuff to talk about. We got OBJ to talk about, and another player, while I've been live, has just been added to the PUP list. Okay, so you know what? Let's start off with the PUP information, and then we'll get into all the Tua stuff for you, because Jeff Darlington said some interesting things. So here you go. All right. Odell Beckham Jr. to join 5 other Dolphins on physically unable to perform list. Wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. will begin his first Dolphins training camp on the physically unable to perform list, according to the league source. NFL Network's Tom Pelissero first reported on Tuesday that Beckham will be placed on PUP and is working through, quote, minor things, and that, quote, part of the plan for easing him back into football. Beckham, 31, was sidelined for the team's voluntary workouts and mandatory minicamp. In May, the Dolphins signed Beckham to a 1-year contract with a base salary of $3 million with another $5.25 million in incentives. A 3-time Pro Bowl selection, Beckham has 566 career receptions for 7,932 yards and 59 receiving touchdowns. He spent last season with the Baltimore Ravens catching 35 passes for 565 yards, which is a 16.1 average, and 3 touchdowns while appearing in 14 games and starting 6. Caught 4 passes for 34 yards in the Ravens' 2 playoff games. When healthy, he's expected to be the team's number 3 receiver, supplementing starters Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Besides those 3, the Dolphins receivers under contract are Braxton Berrios, Eric Ezekiel, River Craycraft, and Anthony Schwartz. Those are the veterans who spent much of last season on the practice squad. The rookie draft picks Malik Washington and Tahj Washington are also competing for jobs at wide receiver, though Tahj Washington is beginning camp on the active PUP list because of an injury sustained during the offseason program. Beckham and Washington are among 2 Dolphins set to begin camp on the active PUP list. The others are Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Cam Good, and Isaiah Wynn, all 4 coming off major injuries last season. A player who begins training camp on PUP list isn't allowed to practice with his team, but can train on the sideline, attend meetings, and watch practice and walkthroughs. A player can only be placed on the active PUP list before the start of training camp. Dolphins veterans reported Tuesday and have their first practice on Wednesday. Players on PUP count against the 90-man roster limit and can come off the PUP list at any point during camp and begin practicing immediately. But players who begin camp on PUP and then come off cannot return to the PUP list if they sustain a setback or different injury during training camp or preseason. Teams have until rosters are sliced to 53, which is August 30th this season, to shift a player to reserve PUP. A player can receive the designation if he's still on the active PUP list by the time training camp rosters are cut. 253. Players shifted to the reserve PUP list must sit out at least the first 4 regular season games. The Dolphins' 4th game is September 30th against the Tennessee Titans. Once a player leaves the reserve PUP list, the team has as many as 21 days to move him to the 53-man roster. He can practice with the team until he's taken off the list. If the player still isn't able to play in games after the 21 period, he will remain on the reserve PUP list for the duration of the season. So, this is what I know regarding this, it was pretty much understood that this was going to be the case. Today, obviously, you report to the facility and you don't practice, but they put you through conditioning tests. What does this tell you about Odell Beckham Jr.? He just basically wasn't ready to pass a conditioning test. That's where we're at right now today. This is minor. He's not hurt. Like, in terms of, like, this is going to be a long-term thing from what I understand. This is not going to be a long-term thing. You know what I mean? He'll be just fine. You know what I mean? He will be just fine. So, listen, I know it's not ideal. I get it. But it is what it is right now. And this will give my boy Malik Washington more of a chance to shine, baby. That's how I see this. It gives my boy Malik a little bit more of a chance to shine. So OBJ, it'll be fine. I've been told this is not, by multiple people, that this is not serious. So it's just a matter of conditioning, et cetera, et cetera. So OBJ will be back. Don't stress out. There's a reason why I have a question mark and an exclamation point at the end of the title of this video, because I know people are going to see that and be like, oh my God, already? This is so Dolphins, and I get that. But in the same sense, they're starting to add up. While I was live just about 20 minutes ago, David Long Jr. joins Beckham on the PUP for Dolphins. Tahj Washington, who was injured during the offseason program, has now been shifted to the reserve injured list. The Dolphins pivoted and signed wide receiver Tyreek McGowan, a former Georgia Tech and Northwestern player who appeared in 2 NFL games for Washington. So I just literally gave you an explanation of what the reserved list and the reserve injured list is. Is it, we know how they work. I'm wondering if they're looking at this injury and they're saying, okay, this is going to take a few months, and then they're going to turn around and they're just going to keep him on the reserve list, and that's their way of stashing him. I'm wondering if that's their way of stashing. We've seen this team do things like this before, where they basically stash players on the reserve list for the following season. I'm wondering if that's what they are thinking in the back of their head. Hey, this is going to take a couple months. Might as well stash him. Now we don't have to make a decision between Berrios and River Craycraft. And he can continue when he gets back off that. We can slide him to the practice squad, or he can continue rehabbing and working on the sideline with Welker and everyone. I'm wondering if this is a stash plan. Because we've seen this team do it before with rookies, with injuries that they could have came back from. So, it forces them not to have to make a decision on Craycraft, Berrios, and Tahj. Because if Tajay's not in the mix, we can pretty much guarantee it's going to be Tyreek, Odell, Waddle, Izakama, right? And then, obviously Malik, River, and of course, you can't forget Braxton, right? So it makes sliding that and slicing that down to 7 much, much easier. So I'm wondering if that's what they're planning. Because, players shifted to the reserve PUP list must sit out at least 4 games of the regular season. So, till the Tennessee Titans game. And then you got 21 days to activate him to the 53-man roster. They won't activate him to the 53-man roster because he won't be far enough. It's a rookie not getting in training camp. There's no way they will activate him to the active roster. He won't be polished enough. That's just you got to think about it it was different if he was in year 2 or year 3, right? Then, okay, you can miss the four games. We activate you off the list and then you come back. But the fact of the matter is he's going to miss a whole training camp. And look at, perfect example, look at how cautious they've been with Eric Ezukanma. Right? So, yeah, even Alf's in the chat, this seems like a red shirt year, 110%. Hey, I'm fine with that. Again, you don't have to you aren't forced a decision to make a decision on Braxton and River Craycraft. We can roll, if Ezukanma shows up like we think he can, we basically know our 7 then, right? Again, Tyreek, Waddle, right? OBJ, Ezukanma, Malik, River, Braxton. You basically know your 7. So, and I agree with EJ. People should not be upset about redshirting a 7th round pick. Hey, Tony Rizzi, hit me up, email me, brother, because I know you said you got some extra tickets for August 6th and 7th. I'm working on something. I may not need them, but just hit me up in email because, we'll see what's up. Anyways, but I'll be down. FYI, I'll be landing on the 5th, and I'll probably be flying out on the 9th. So I'll be there for the Atlanta joint practices, all right? In case you guys weren't aware or missed that announcement, whatever the case may be. So, listen. OBJ isn't the worry. Tahj Washington, his injury is clearly more serious and more of the concern in the wide receiver room. So, hey, listen, it's early on. David Long, do we really need him we don't need him until the pads come on. It's the same thing with OBJ if you really think about it. And we know how cautious they are with veterans. We don't mess around. That's where we take the cautious approaches with veterans, right? We basically put you on pitch counts. We give Wednesdays off because we want to keep these guys fresh. So I'm not worried. OBJ, part of the process. I'm not worried at all. You shouldn't be worried at all. Tahj Washington seems like it's going to be a red shirt year. We're good. All right. We'll be fine. All right. We'll be just fine. So no one panic. I don't want to hear no panicking. All right, let's get into the Tua stuff because it is aplenty. There is no doubt about that. All right, there's Tua stuff aplenty right now. So let's get into this article here from Barry Jackson. Dolphins Tagovailoa reports to camp. Here are 5 unrelated concerns the team now faces. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa reported to training camp on Tuesday, eliminating the extremely remote chance that he would hold out amid ongoing contract talks. We know he's not taking those $50,000 daily fines. Whether Tagovailoa participates in all practice reps won't be known until Wednesday when on-field work begins. But Tyreek said Tuesday, I believe he will practice. He's in great spirits. He doesn't want to miss his window. Receiver Jalen Waddle said, Tua is the guy that loves the game. I don't think it'll be a distraction. Green Bay Packers quarterback Jordan Love isn't participating in practice before his contract extension is finalized. That's an option, often referred to as a hold-in, that's available to Tagovailoa beginning on Wednesday, should he choose to go that course. Month of negotiations on a long-term contract for Tagovailoa hadn't resulted in a deal as of Tuesday morning. Running back Raheem Mostert said Tua Tagovailoa holding out could be the right move and said that his teammates would understand if he did, and we'll get into exactly what he said. I'll play it right after this. Don't worry. As for Hill, he's still awaiting word from the Dolphins about whether he'll receive a contract extension because he has no guaranteed money, and we'll get into his comments after this as well. So, state of the team. This is a very good Dolphins roster that opened training camp on Tuesday, a team with its best offense on paper in 2 decades, a defense armed with accomplished veterans in Ramsey, Campbell, and on the med Bradley Chubb, and a nice blend of youth and experience. They should be in the playoffs, and they seem good enough to win 1 playoff game, possibly even 2 if they earn home field advantage and a decent draw in the divisional round. But here's Barry Jackson's top 5 concerns. The number 3 quarterback, and remember, this was one of the main battles I had on my top training camp battles to watch, right? Nickel cornerbacks traditionally, but I had more so the number 3, the guy behind Fuller and Ramsey on the boundary, not the nickel. He's specifying nickel here. Nickel cornerbacks traditionally play more than half of a team's defensive snaps, and the Dolphins cannot enter camp with any great confidence about what they will get from either player who wins that job. Kader Kohou, the front runner for that job based on experience, told the Miami Herald that he was terrible last season. His 133.4 passer rating against was second worst among cornerbacks, targeted at least 50 times, ahead of only New England's Marco Wilson. His 721 passing yards permitted were sixth most in the league amongst cornerbacks. Somewhere inside Kohou is the 2022 rookie revelation who allowed a sterling 80.7 passer rating in his coverage area and intercepted Aaron Rodgers on Christmas Day in 2022. But can that player be extracted after a sophomore slump? See, this is why I tell people, listen, I love CJ Stroud. I was high on CJ Stroud coming out. But don't push all your chips in the middle of the table on CJ Stroud, because the sophomore slump is real. I say this all the time. If not, can 2023 second rounder Cam Smith, who I think is a better fit on the boundary than the nickel, who's fighting for the top boundary cornerback backup job, move past the practice reps inconsistency that concerned former coordinator Vic Fangio to the point that he played undrafted Ethan Bonner ahead of him in a playoff game? If not, will Nick Needham, now 21 months recovered from an Achilles tendon injury, seize the number 3 job after spending part of this season at safety? Can Bonner become a viable number 3 or number 4 cornerback? The concern about the roster's backup corners will be amplified if none of them emerge in camp, or if Ramsey or Kendall Fuller misses time with an injury. The Dolphins always try to find a cornerback on the street in August, as they did with Eli Apple last July. If Xavier Howard doesn't sign anywhere and the team's young corners struggle in camp, look at this. Howard should not be ruled out. Are we serious? They literally think, okay, all right, maybe. I don't know about that, but we'll see. Pass rush until Chubb and Jalen are back at full strength. Both beginning camp on physically unable to perform list, with Phillips seemingly closer to game action. Until both are clear, the question is whether Miami has enough outside linebacker help among Ogbah and rookies Chop Robinson and Mo Kamara. It's impossible to know because of youth and the uncertainty of whether Ogbah can regain his 2020-2021 form after being marginalized last season by Vic Fangio. Though Robinson was 6th in the nation in pass block win rate at Penn State last season, he only had 2 sacks. That production won't be good enough if he's a starter. Brother, again, everyone understands. This is what the problem with Statbox watching. Everyone understands pressure. And everyone who plays the game understands what pressure generated does. Not every play needs to result in a sack for you to force an interception, for you to force a bad read or decision from a quarterback. Pressure alone. I mean, we weren't always sacking Tom Brady, but when we would get consistent pressure on Tom Brady, he was at his worst against Miami. That's why he would struggle playing against us. We knew how to get pressure on him. The Dolphins need the rookies and Ogbah to deliver consistent heat on the quarterback to generate enough. See, again, I'm not worried about the pass rush from the edges. I'm worried about setting the edge. That's my concern. We've got guys that will generate pressure and sacks. Do we have guys that can consistently set the edge so we're not always beat by teams with running outside zone, for example, off that edge? That's the worry. Age of some key players is another concern. Players' bodies often begin to break down and production declines when they get into their mid-30s, Tom Brady and a few others notwithstanding. That's at least somewhat of a concern with Jordan Poyer, Calais Campbell, and Taron Armstead, who turned 33 on Tuesday. With Odell Beckham at 31, can he create the same separation from defenders that he once did? At least there's no sign of superhuman Hill. See, now, like, brother, he's the third option. Waddle and Tyreek are going to be drawing a lot of the coverage too, especially when they're on the field with Odell. There's ways to get Odell very open. Offensive line concerns, and I would agree with this one. Though the Dolphins gave up the 4th fewest sacks and led the league in rushing yards average, they converted only 5 of 11 rushing attempts on 3rd and 1. That 45% was worse than the league. The Dolphins downgrade at center. I don't think it's that big of a downgrade from Connor Williams to Aaron Brewer. And at right guard, now this is a huge downgrade from Robert Hunt to Liam Eichenberger, Jack Driscoll. I would agree with that. Both of these moves were seemingly unavoidable because of Hunt's 5-year, $100 million contract was far beyond what the Dolphins could do under the salary cap, and because Williams began free agency, unsure if he would even play after last December's devastating knee injury. Burrow will be effective in Miami's zone blocking scheme. He's well suited for Miami's system, 110%. They can pull him and do things athletically they never did with Connor. 110%. So Brewer, I don't think it'll be that big, but the concern is Brewer permitted, 6 sacks. Remember, he also had Will Levis, a rookie quarterback who was learning the way, right? And Aaron Brewer himself was just learning the position, right? He had been shifted to that position, and he had a rookie quarterback. It's not like he had, Aaron Rodgers or some grizzled veteran who has seen every single thing thrown at him and can help him with protections. So he permitted 6 sacks and 34 pressures in 622 pass blocking snaps. The Tagovailoa's quick release can mask offensive line shortcomings to an extent. That might not save his body if a behemoth off defensive tackle overpowers Burrow and sacks Tagovailoa after the snap. The hope is that assistant coach Butch Barry did good work with the Dolphins offensive line last year, can improve Brewer's pass protection from a technique standpoint. Then there's the health concern on the left side of the line. Armstead, entering year 12, has never played a full season and logged 8, 13, and 10 games the past 3 years. Isaiah Wynn, who was very good at left guard last year before a season-ending injury in Week 7, has played more than 10 games in a season once in 5 years because of injuries. And he will begin training camp on the PUP list. There are a lot of ifs with this group. If Armstead and Wynn stay healthy, if Brewer suddenly becomes much better in pass pro, if Driscoll or Eichenberg emerges at right guard. And better competition is his last concern. 2 teams that missed the playoffs last season get their quarterbacks and will be formidable challengers, Cincinnati and the Jets. Even if you brush off the Jets and plug in the Bengals, that means at least one AFC team that made last year's playoffs won't make it this season. And that doesn't even factor in Jacksonville, which won a playoff game 18 months ago. All of last year's AFC playoff teams, Baltimore, Kansas City, Miami, Houston, Cleveland, and Buffalo, and Pittsburgh, I think Pittsburgh's the one that drops off that list, remain formidable, though the Bills had some veteran losses headlined by Stephon Diggs' trade to Houston. 3 of those teams are likely to be better, the Texans and the Steelers and Cleveland. Well, I wouldn't bank on Deshaun Watson. That leaves Miami somewhat at risk. Man, we got better too. I don't know what he's talking about. We got better. Offensively, we added Jonnu Smith, Jalen Wright, OBJ, Malik Washington. We got better too. So, and I think there's not that big drop. I don't think the drop off from Christian Wilkins to the guys we've brought in is going to be that massive. Again, I don't think you're falling into some canyon. I honestly think this is what I think is going to happen. You look at Pittsburgh, they're all about structure. Why did Sean Payton move off of Russell Wilson? He can't play in structure. And he's not the same athlete he was 10 years ago who could play out of structure the way he could. He's just not. And then these people are still hanging their hat whatsoever on Deshaun Watson? Please. The biggest bullet we dodged was not listening to these idiots who told us to move off Tua for Deshaun Watson. This man is robbing that franchise without a ski mask and a gun with the money they're having to pay for what they're getting. Let's be real here. Let's keep it $150. I'm just saying. Now, let's get into some Tua stuff, and let's talk about Tyreek Hill. So there was a lot to unpack today. So I want to talk about this. I want to play this clip, and then I want to talk about it from an angle we haven't discussed before. All right, let's get into this.
I think that's a great question to start off.
This is Mostert on Tua.
I think Tua is very well deserving of the opportunity to get a contract extension. He's worked his tail off, especially since I've started playing with him. I've seen nothing but growth. And the leadership that he portrays, not only for the team but for the organization, is definitely top notch. One of the best, if not the best, leader in the locker room and for the organization. So, with that being said, I truly believe that he deserves everything that he has coming his way, plus more. And I'm just excited for him. it's going to be a great opportunity.
What happens if he sits out or limits himself during training camp until the deal gets done?
That's under his discretion and his team. I can't really speak on that just because I'm not, I'm his teammate and I'm one of his brothers. We could have a conversation about it, but all in all, that's up to his, his team and his priorities are something that is of importance in that aspect. So, I think that it could be the right move, and guys in the locker room definitely understand that. Tua is Tua, and he's always putting the team first. That's how I see it, and that's how everybody in the locker room sees it.
Do you realize what he just said? Raheem Mostert just told each and every one of us that the locker room is not only standing in solidarity with Tua, but they're fully behind him if he decides to hold in and not participate in practice. Listen, I think, you know what? I've already gone on record in saying I think we're going to get to a point in a couple weeks at maximum where McDaniel walks in Greer's office and says, yo, you brought me in here. I've been a fan of this guy since San Francisco. I told you I could get him right and make him the franchise quarterback you envision. I did that. He led the league in passing last year, right? Top 5 in all major quarterback statistical categories over the last 2 years. Been in the MVP conversation the year before, in 2022 up until he got injured, and in 2023 up until week 17 when we lost to the Ravens. I did all that. Now, not only forget Tua, Mike McDaniel is going to say, I've got expectations on my shoulders to win a playoff game and to make a run in the playoffs with the roster you put together. Now you're playing games with my quarterback who you brought me in here to basically help you get to this situation where you even were in the position to pay him this kind of money? Now you want to play games? I got to go and field Skylar Thompson and Mike White? Oh, I could see before the pads are about to come on, McDaniel walking in and saying, yo, pads are coming on. Enough. Get this done. Enough of this. I could 100, and I'm going to tell you this much. I was talking to someone about this today. Shout out to the homie. He knows who he is, Cash. I was talking to him about this today. He brought it up, and I agreed with him. What if fans start giving them issues? All these fans who are going to be taking time off to go to training camp, and Tua ain't out there. I could see Tua chants. I could see them yelling. I could see fans in the stands letting it be known, get this guy done. So you're going to have fans pushing back. You got players standing in solidarity with their quarterback, and behind him, Mostert's admitting we're all behind him if he holds out or if he holds in. This is just continuing to get, everyone's looking at the Miami Dolphins like, what are you doing? And even the players, dog, at minicamp, when you put them in front of a mic, they were saying the narrative has not changed. All the players are standing behind Tua getting paid. They watched you ask Christian Wilkins to go prove he was a pass rusher. He did so. You didn't pay him. They watched Robert Hunt be their most consistent body on the offensive line from play to health. You let him walk. You didn't pay him. Now they're watching you play games with their leader and the franchise quarterback, and while everyone else in that draft class gets paid. That does not go over well. I'm telling you right now, because guys are looking at it from their own standpoint too. What's going to happen when I'm up for my money? If they're doing this with Christian Wilkins, who was one of the biggest defensive leaders we've had in the last 10 years, and now they're doing it with our franchise quarterback, what are they going to do with me when I'm up to get paid and I believe I'm worth market value? What are they going to say to me? That's the reality of the situation. So this is not getting any better for the Miami Dolphins. You brought Mike McDaniel in to get you to a point where you would even be considering paying Tua as a franchise quarterback. Now you're at that point, and now there's hesitation. Anyways, I'm going to play 2 clips from Dan Orlovsky's show. What I've done is I've attached the audio to still frames because they have highlights involved and YouTube's demonetizing you with Tua highlights involved in these segments. So, all right, this is what Orlovsky said. Listen to what Orlovsky says. Check this out from Dan Orlovsky and Pat McAfee.
And then the Tua one is fascinating. The Tua one's interesting to me because I think if you're the Dolphins, you sit there and go, it hasn't gotten done. Why? Why has that deal not gotten done yet? It's one of 2 things. Either that they believe it's more because of Mike McDaniel than Tua, or 2, that only because he's only played 1 full season. And so is it a lack of performance or belief that the performance is sustainable, or the health? That's the only, because it's unquestionably the best season that they've had at that position in 25 years.
That's what I've said.
Best, not even close. He threw for 4,700 yards.
First Pro Bowl
So to not get that deal done yet,
Miami
you're sitting there going, well, what's the
95.
hesitation from the Dolphins side? And if you're Tua, if you're Tua and the numbers even remotely close to what Trevor got, why would you not run and take it, considering 18 months ago we saw that season in 22 where multiple times got taken off the field because of head injury.
Yeah, but he learned jiu-jitsu, obviously, and he's all the way back, and he's going to be, they say, more active because he's lost more weight in the pocket, going to go back to extending plays. So I believe everybody around Tua believes that he's going to be the best that he has ever been somehow. And in his mind, if they are near $55 million a year, that's phenomenal. Congrats to all of them. Congrats to all of them for this. And
Totally.
It's not an easy job, obviously. You don't just fall into a $55 million a year payday. There's a lot of work that goes into that. But if he does get that, it's like he's got McDaniel drawing up plays for him. Right? Yeah. They have to get a Tyreek Hill deal done, which assumingly they'll be able to do that as well. He's in Miami, which is obviously in the state of Florida, for no state income tax. Miami's like one of the cities where everybody is trying to move to at this exact moment and have been since 2020 for some reason. I don't know if anybody remembers why that was happening or anything like that. So it's like dream situation almost for Tua. If they're trying to pay him, you would assume that he would want that. So maybe.
Now, I see someone in the chat said, play another full season and win at least a single playoff game. And Jason nailed it right here. Playoff wins are a team thing, not a QB thing. And the problem what people are failing to realize here right now, and I'll go over this again, I've gone over it before. What was the one flaw me and EM Dolphin fans used to sit up here in 2019 and before the 2020 draft and tell y'all we were worried about Tua? What was the one flaw? Not enough reps and not enough experience in the second half and fourth quarters in crunch time. Why? You came from a power school like Alabama that was blowing people out. And I played a clip here a couple months ago of Joe Burrow coming up here, and he talked about this. He said, why do you think Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are so good in the second half and in crunch time? Because look at the reps they got at Texas Tech and Wyoming. Even against unranked teams, you were in crunch moments in the fourth quarter, in the last 2 minutes. This is an acquired skill. It comes with reps and experience, and it goes beyond Tua. We have a coach who's learning how to win in fourth quarters, in the last 2 minutes, and in big games as well. This is Mike McDaniel's first coaching gig. Perfect example. Look at Andy Reid. Andy Reid started having playoff success, got past the NFC Championship once, lost, but couldn't get over that hump in Philadelphia. And he was an offensive genius. What happened? Eventually left Philadelphia, went to Kansas City. What did he do? Reinvigorate Alex Smith's career, made him an MVP candidate. Then he got a one-of-one in Mahomes, and now you can't stop him from winning. And now he's so good at winning, he can, brought in Steve Spagnuolo, and they built a defense where he doesn't even have to fully rely on his offense to win. You got a head coach and your quarterback who are learning to win in big moments. You have Tyreek Hill, who's won in big moments in Kansas City, who quite frankly has kind of come up flat in a lot of big moments for us with drops. Whether it was the Philadelphia game this year, the Kansas City game in Germany twice in the first half. You could he cost us a 13 to 21 point swing between the drop at the 30 and the fumble at the 31 that was returned for a touchdown. We got no points off either drive, and one of them we gave 7 to Kansas City. The Dallas drop, right? Buffalo in 2022. There's about 7 or 8 drops in big game moments for Tyreek Hill in 2 years. And then you got Fangio and the defense crap in the bed in the last couple minutes against Tennessee. So, anyways, listen. I get the injuries, the hesitation, but I've said this before, I'll say it again to Orlovsky's point. Tua's not taking Trevor Lawrence's deal. Trevor Lawrence's deal is not a good deal. When you get into the guaranteed numbers and how it's structured, it's not a good deal. And Trevor Lawrence even admitted he took a little less to help out the Jags. Athletes first will not go for that deal. Jordan Love's going to get a better deal than Trevor Lawrence's deal. Now, on that same Pat McAfee broadcast, Jeff Darlington came up, and we've been keeping along with everything he has been, we've been keeping up with everything Jeff Darlington has said. He says something very interesting today. Check this out.
23 teams are reporting to training camp. Obviously, way over half the NFL was already working on earning their next Lombardi. But down there in Miami, there is a lot of chatter. And a lot of it revolves around the quarterback. And also the wide receiver, which I think you can kind of touch on if you want in your answer. But the Tua contract, how big of a deal is that? Is that going to get loud? Is that going to get completed? And how do they go about getting this done? And is Trevor Lawrence's deal the big one that everybody, he and Jordan Love, and everybody's kind of waiting and sitting on here as they try to negotiate the biggest number possible?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, going back about a month ago, the negotiations really hadn't gotten to a point where it felt like it was even close. Tua didn't perceive the options on the table, the contract on the table, to be market value, that of the Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence deals in the mid-50s annual per year. Now, since then, I've been told that things are amicable, that they have been inching closer.
So they made progress.
That being said, he's reported. Whether he practices tomorrow will be a pretty big indicator. And I would actually point to that Jordan Love situation. To me, that feels completely amicable. It actually feels like him staying off the field, it means that it's even closer because they see a light at the end of the tunnel. I could really at this point see if Tua is on the practice field tomorrow, they can continue to negotiate, but I could see him playing this thing out because where they were before was very clear divide. This was a team that said, we're just not ready to commit that type of money, and a quarterback who very firmly said it himself, the market is the market, and he doesn't feel like he should take anything less.
Now, why is that? Is that because McDaniel's offense can create people to be open, Tyreek Hill and Waddle could get open, or why do you think they're viewing him that way versus maybe other places? I think
if you look at this just from a prudent business standpoint, and I understand it's a little bit difficult when it is your franchise quarterback and he's done everything, he's the face of the team, he does it all the right way, but if you look at it, if you sign him now compared to what you would sign him for after this season, even if he goes off, I've talked to enough GMs around the league who are kind of like, we wouldn't pay him mid-50s. We're not going to go there. So if the demand is such that after this season, he plays really well and everybody looks at it and says, well, yeah, he's got Tyreek, he's got Waddle, nothing against him. He's got Mike McDaniel. He can do those things in this system, and that's the best place for him. I don't think that a team is going to step up after this season and all of a sudden say, yeah, we're going to give him $60 million a year.
Negotiations are always so interesting, and we wish we would have negotiated more time on ESPN every single day. But this linear broadcast will end, and we'll continue on ESPN Plus, YouTube, and TikTok Live. We will see you tomorrow for a wonderful Wednesday with more bullshit.
So there you go. Darlington says that teams aren't even willing to go there in the mid-50s, let alone $60 million for him. Now, here's the thing with that. So why aren't we keeping that same energy with Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow had Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, and look at all the resources they spent on the offensive line. And he had a defense that carried him to that Super Bowl. And I'm a Joe Burrow fan. But Joe Burrow wasn't even making proper hot reads that playoff run. He was getting killed. He was getting hit so much because he wasn't making the proper hots. Trevor Lawrence just got the money he got, and he wasn't able to elevate Calvin Ridley. let alone Christian Kirk, et cetera, et cetera. So I find that very hypocritical to hold one guy, and I'll say this to anyone who says that. You hold one guy to the standard of the system and the weapons around him, but you won't hold the other guys around that to like Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? I just named Trevor Lawrence, couldn't even elevate guys. I mean, Tua Tagovailoa elevated Lynn Bowden Jr. and Malcolm Perry to a higher status than Trevor Lawrence did with Calvin Ridley. I love Matt Stafford, but Matt Stafford's had Calvin Johnson Jr. And look at, he comes over here. He had Cooper Kupp and OBJ. The last good run of OBJ was with that Rams team. Now he's got Puka Nacua, Tyler Higbee, Kyron Williams, a run game. All these quarterbacks need to be surrounded by talent, and every scheme is built to the strengths of the quarterback. That's how you operate an offense. These people are acting like Tua's an outlier when it's the same exact situation as the other guys. So, yeah. But he makes it seem 110% that they've made progress. There's no longer that clear divide. That's what it is. I mean, Herbert put up all these gaudy numbers. Go look at the numbers Keenan Allen and Mike Williams put up with Phillip Rivers. Herbert put up all these gaudy numbers, couldn't win in the, choked like a 20-plus point playoff lead away, and he got paid. So what are we talking about right now? What are we talking about? Look at Austin Eckler. Like 51% of this guy's completions came inside 5 yards to the line of scrimmage because Austin Eckler was his most dependent and number one. He was checked down. Charlie was Herbert with Austin Eckler. What are we talking about? Anyways, so interesting thing there. So things to take away. Darlington doesn't think a team, if Tua balls out, would even pay him $60 million next year. Seems like the Dolphins are having a hard time swallowing the pill of coming up to market value, but they have made progress over the last month to the point where it's very amicable, and they're not divided like they were a month ago. So there you go. So there is progress being made. California Fin Fan, I think they budge off that price in 2 times this season. If the deal's not done and agreed to between, during training camp, they will make their best offer so far between the end of camp and the start of the season. And then if Tua has a good first 8 weeks, I could see them coming back to the table and throwing the bag. No, Gesicki disappeared because he can't block. It was Gesicki's ability that had him disappear. That's why Mike Gesicki disappeared. And all of you fans wanted to pay Mike Gesicki $10+ million because of what you saw Tua do with him. Thank you for making another point of me. Look at how big time he elevated Mike Gesicki. Best years were with Tua Tagovailoa. Now what's Gesicki since he left here? Just saying. Tyreek Hill had some interesting comments today, and you're right, AA. Malik Washington will be a superstar. I've been saying that since the draft. Some interesting comments from Tyreek Hill today. I like the accountability. Now, is this a PR thing because he wants to get his money? I don't know. So let's see. I'm going to play this for you because Tyreek Hill talks about his 2,000-yard chase and the whole situation with trying to get new money.
I don't know. To be honest, I have no idea. Obviously, I let Drew and, the team handle that situation. And the only thing I told Drew was, like, not get me traded, bro. Last time you did this, you got me traded. So that's been my only thing to him. I'm like, if I want to stay here in Miami, man, because obviously this is where family is now. Everybody loves it here. Family loves it. Wife loves it. Kids love it. So obviously I love it. Love playing for Coach and the team. My teammates are awesome. So I wouldn't want to leave, man. The fans are awesome too, man. I just love how the fans hold us accountable every day on Twitter. So we're getting better. I promise you. We're not just sitting around, drinking smoothies. We're getting better. So yeah. I will say for me, man. Last year is last year. Obviously, it was great for me to come out and say XYZ. I want to get 2K. I want to do this and that. That'll be great. Grand scenario. That'll be great. But I feel like at the same time, I have to understand that the position that I'm in, and me being one of the leaders and just singling out, an individual goal like that, because I had time to go look at it, talk about it with my family, and it's like that's very selfish of me, So here moving forward, individual goal I've been talking about this whole entire offseason with my teammates, with my family, is I would want us to win a playoff game. I would love that. We're gonna start with that. Then moving forward, continuing to build on that, we're gonna move to the Super Bowl. So it's one step at a time. Like if I'm able to, help this team, do something special as a team goal, I would definitely count that as an individual goal as my own. And that'll feel good. That'll be something that I can live with for the rest of my life. So that'd be great.
So, I'm just saying, I mean, listen, I'm just happy at the fact that he recognized the 2K thing. You gotta be better than that. Listen, what are you going to talk about at the end of your career? A 2K season or being the one that helped bring a Super Bowl to Miami? What are you going to talk about? What's going to be the thing that you will be a god amongst men in Miami if you bring a Super Bowl? 2,000 yards? Fans will treat you the same way they just treated Tua for leading the league in passing. They'll say, yeah, 2,000 yards, that's great. We didn't win a playoff game and we didn't win the Super Bowl. What does that matter? So, a lot of us viewed the 2K thing as a distraction. And Mike McDaniel's a bit to a fault, takes a bit of the fault of that too. Right? One of the first things he said on the phone to Tyreek was, we're going to get you 2,000 yards. McDaniel out here talking to Dan Marino, all these guys were coming for your records. Stop worrying about records. Let the stats come organically and worry about the W's. Go back to 2022 when the workload was being shared between Tyreek and Waddle. Go watch that Cleveland game. Cleveland has one of the best defenses over the last 2 years. Tua had 12 or 13 different receivers in that game, and Tyreek had 60 yards that game. Tua was getting to his second, third reads consistently, making throws. We got to get back to that trajectory you saw in year one when it was more of a shared workload between Tyreek and Waddle. Now, we both need them to stay healthy. I get that. But that's when our offense had us all salivating at oh my God. And then last year, because of Waddle's injury, he's injured basically since camp heading into the season. Then they just kept piling up. It became more the Tyreek show. And in the second half of the season, we got stunted out. And it's also going to come down to Mike McDaniel. For the last couple of years, we've talked about it. We've hyped it up. And you haven't heard me hype it up this offseason because I'm not going to. What's your counterpunch going to be when you start getting figured out after the first half of the season and the tape is out there? What's your counterpunch going to be? Mike McDaniel has to figure that out. We were all excited that he would dig deep into his bag of tricks, and it never hasn't come the last 2 years. Year 3, it needs to come, especially for the playoffs. because the Chiefs are a perfect example. In Germany, if Waddle, if his catch down to the 26, 28 doesn't get called back on a penalty, if Tyreek doesn't drop the ball at the 30 and then fumble the ball at the 31, that's returned for a touchdown, that's 9 to 21 points on the board for us right there alone. We beat them. And then what happened? You saw the adjustment of Spagnuolo in the playoffs. Mike McDaniel had no answer for his adjustments. Plus, Mike McDaniel's game plan to begin with was absolutely terrible. I talk about this all the time. Why are you throwing horizontally with a finesse thrower behind the line of scrimmage in 27-mile-per-hour winds and minus 29 wind chill? You need to be driving the football, and that's why you saw Tua was at his best driving the football outside the numbers and downfield in that game. But we were screen. So, I'm just saying. Over 340 of you in the room. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. I will be back tomorrow, unless there's breaking news with Richmond and ball game for the finish line. Until then, do me the favor, smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new. Appreciate all y'all. Fins up. I'll see y'all in the next one.